Good afternoon. This is All India Radio. I'm Anuja Kumar, and with me is Tanvi Taneja with the Midday News. The headlines. Campaigning is in full swing for third and final phase of assembly elections in Bihar. Counting of votes underway for keenly contested U.S. presidential elections. COVID-19 recovery rate improves to 92.09%. Record 11 crore 30 lakh tests conducted in the country so far. UN General Assembly adopts 2 India-sponsored resolutions on nuclear disarmament. And in cricket, Women's T20 Challenger gets underway in Sharjah this evening. As the nation fights the COVID-19 pandemic, we begin with a message of precaution to stay safe and protected by following these 3 simple steps. Wear a face mask, maintain 2 gaz ki doori for social distancing, focus on hand and face hygiene. And now, the news in detail. In Bihar, a high-pitch campaign is presently on for the third and final phase of state assembly elections and will conclude tomorrow evening. In this phase, 78 constituencies spread over 15 districts, including Kishanganj, Katihar, Madhepura, Supol, Darbhanga and Madhubani, will go to polls on the 7th of November. Polling for by-election to Valmiki Nagar parliamentary seat will also be held simultaneously. Senior leaders and star campaigners of all parties are holding multiple rallies in poll-bound Mithilanchal, Simanchal and Kosi area. More from our correspondent.
BJP President JP Nadda will hold election rallies in Champaran region in support of NDA candidates. Senior BJP leader and Defence Minister Rajnath Singh and Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh Yogi Adityanath will address public meetings in Katihar, Darbhanga, Madhubani and Saharsa district. JDU President and Chief Minister Nitish Kumar held public meetings in Kocha Dhaman and Thakurganj in Kishanganj. He said 1 lakh women of minority communities have been provided skill development training. It helped them to become self-reliant. Chief Ministerial candidate of Grand Alliance Tejasvi Prasad Yadav will also address series of public meetings in the last leg of campaign. Addressing a public meeting at Bahadurganj in Kishanganj, Mr. Yadav said providing 10 lakh jobs is his priority. The RJD leader said the plight of unemployed youth and migrant people is a core issue for him to be resolved. Leaders of other opposition parties also held several public meetings to the voters. Dharmendra Kumar Rai, AIR News, Patna.
Senior Congress leader Rahul Gandhi today addressed a rally in Biharganj in Madhepura. He alleged that the 3 agriculture legislations which have been brought by NDA are anti-farmer. Mr. Gandhi added that ultimately due to these acts, farmers will get trapped into hands of bigger middlemen because local agriculture produce markets have been dismantled. The former Congress president criticized the policies of the governments at centre and Bihar. He alleged that the bad impacts of the newly passed acts are visible now, days as prices of onion and vegetables soaring fast. In Madhya Pradesh, BJP and Congress have made their claims of victory in the state after nearly 70% voting was recorded in the by-elections held in 28 assembly seats yesterday. Senior leaders of both the parties have called the high turnout a verdict in their favour. A report.
As per the official information, the highest turnout of more than 83% voting recorded in Agar and Badnavar seats, while the lowest 48% polling has been recorded in Gwalior East. Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan thanked all the voters of the state for the huge turnout. Former Chief Minister Kamla Harris has also described it as a victory of the people. Meanwhile, former Chief Minister Digvijay Singh has again targeted the BJP over EVMs. Sanjeev Sharma, AIR News, Bhopal.
In the United States, counting of votes is underway for the keenly contested presidential election. Over 160 million votes were cast in the U.S. presidential election 2020, a turnout rate of about 67%, which is higher than the country has witnessed in more than a century. Voting across the nation was largely smooth as voters lined up across polling stations in the country to cast their ballots. Though security at the White House, government buildings and major commercial avenues across the United States has been tightened as America braced for a possible unrest and violence in a bitter and divisive polls. as the initial result of the presidential election left the outcome in the balance. Republican candidate and incumbent President Donald Trump claimed that his party is winning big. Addressing his supporters, results coming right now have been phenomenal and they are getting ready for a big celebration.
I want to thank the American people for their tremendous support. Millions and millions of people voted for us. And we were getting ready for a big celebration. We were winning everything. The results tonight have been phenomenal. The citizens of this country have come out in record numbers to support our incredible movement. We won states that we weren't expected to win. Florida, we didn't win it. We won it by a lot. It's also clear that we have won Georgia.
Earlier, in a tweet this morning, President Trump accused Democrats of attempting to steal the election from him. On the other hand, Democratic candidate Joe Biden urged his supporters to keep the faith. Appearing before supporters in his hometown of Wilmington at Delaware, Mr. Biden asked them to keep the faith as they are going to win this election.
It's not my place or Donald Trump's place to declare who's won this election. That's the decision of the American people. But I'm optimistic about this outcome. And I want to thank every one of you who came out and voted in this election. I'm grateful to the poll workers, to our volunteers, our canvassers, everyone who participated in this democratic process. And folks, you heard me say it before. Keep the faith, guys. We're going to win this.
Indian Americans are one of the fastest growing communities in the United States, and their participation in politics has increased significantly in recent years than ever before. The Indian American electorate is expected to make a considerable difference in the U.S. presidential polls this time. Indian diaspora in America is a 4 million strong community. Both the Republicans and Democrats have been making all-out efforts to woo the Indian Americans ahead of the elections. The Howdy Modi event last year was attended by 50,000 Indian Americans at Houston's NRG Stadium, where U.S. President Donald Trump joined Prime Minister Narendra Modi in addressing the diaspora. Kamla Harris is the Democratic Party's nominee for the vice presidential post. She was born to an Indian mother and a Jamaican father. Ms. Harris has attempted to strike a chord with both the African American and Indian American voters ahead of the elections. Our correspondent has filed this report.
Both Republican and Democratic Party are leaving no stone unturned in reaching out to the Indian American community. Indian Americans are the second largest immigrant group in the U.S. after Mexicans. Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella, Google CEO Sundar Pichai, former PepsiCo CEO Indra Nooyi are some of the notable Indian Americans. New York has the highest population of Indians, followed by Chicago and Washington, D.C. Democratic Party candidate Joe Biden's campaign issued a manifesto targeting Indian American voters. U.S. President Donald Trump's campaign recently shared an online advertisement with images of Prime Minister Narendra Modi with President Trump at Howdy Modi event. The affluence and influence of Indian Americans in political circles have grown, and these efforts are geared towards securing their votes. Suparna Saikia, IIR News, Delhi.
Chinese fintech giant Ant Group's dual listing at Shanghai and Hong Kong stock exchanges has been delayed. The largest initial public offering in global finance, worth around $35 billion, has been delayed just 2 days ahead from its trading debut. It was delayed following a meeting of the group's co-founder, Jack Ma, by the Chinese market regulators on Monday. The Shanghai Stock Exchange has today decided to temporarily postpone the listing of Ant Group. A statement by Shanghai market operator said the meeting between Ant Group's senior executives and China's top financial regulators constituted significant change in the regulatory environment, which may lead to the fintech company not fulfilling the listing requirements or disclosure rules of the exchange. The first day trading of Ant Group's A shares in Shanghai and the H shares in Hong Kong will be postponed, the two exchange operators said in their respective statements. There is no indication as to when the trading will commence. Foreign Secretary Harshvardhan Shringla has said the fact that the Indo-Pacific is the 21st century's locus of political and security concerns and competition is indisputable. He was speaking on India's foreign policy in a post-COVID world at Policy Exchange in the UK yesterday. The Foreign Secretary stressed that in the 21st century, the interconnectedness of the Indo-Pacific is finally coming into full play. He added that a motivating factor is the region's emergence as a driver of international trade and well-being. The Indo-Pacific Ocean System carries an estimated 65% of world trade and contributes 60% of global GDP. 90% of India's international trade travels on its waters. The Foreign Secretary stated that for India and for many others, the shift in the economic trajectory from the Atlantic to the Indo-Pacific has been hugely consequential. He also said that the rise of China and the imperative for a global rebalancing have added to the mix. He further stated that a rules-based international order is achievable only with a rules-based Indo-Pacific.
The First Committee of the United Nations General Assembly, UNGA, has adopted 2 India-sponsored resolutions on nuclear disarmament which aim to reduce the risk of nuclear accidents and call for a prohibition on the use of nuclear weapons. The UNGA First Committee deals with the issue of disarmament and works in close cooperation with the United Nations Disarmament Commission and the Geneva-based Conference on Disarmament, the other 2 bodies to deal with the nuclear issue. The 2 resolutions adopted include Convention on the Prohibition of the Use of Nuclear Weapons and Reducing Nuclear Danger under the Nuclear Weapons Cluster. The adoption of the resolutions shows India's commitment towards the goal of nuclear disarmament. The resolution on Convention on the Prohibition of Use of Nuclear Weapons was backed by a majority of UN members and was tabled by India since 1982. It calls for a conference on disarmament to start negotiations on an international convention prohibiting the use or threat of use of nuclear weapons under any circumstances. The aim is that a universal and legally binding agreement would generate the necessary global political will that can lead to the total elimination of nuclear weapons. One such treaty which has been proposed in the past is Nuclear Weapons Convention that outlaws nuclear weapons, but negotiations on it are inactive at the Conference on Disarmament. Conference on Disarmament, while not a UN body, is linked with it in various ways and formed to negotiate arms control and disarmament agreements. The resolution on reducing nuclear danger, which was tabled since 1998, puts focus on unintentional or accidental use of nuclear weapons and underscores the need for a review of nuclear doctrines. The resolution asks for concrete steps to reduce such risks, including through de-alerting and de-targeting of nuclear weapons. You are listening to the Midday News on All India Radio. A reminder of the headlines before we move on. Campaigning is in full swing for third and final phase of assembly elections in Bihar. Counting of votes underway for the keenly contested US presidential elections. COVID-19 recovery rate improves to 92.09%. Record 11 crore 30 lakh tests conducted in the country so far. UN General Assembly adopts 2 India-sponsored resolutions on nuclear disarmament. And in cricket, Women's T20 Challenger gets underway in Sharjah this evening. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on our Twitter handle at AIR News Alerts. चलो मिलकर एक शुरुआत करें, चलो एक फैसला आज करें, मास्क नहीं तो टोकेंगे, कोरोना को रोकेंगे, चलो एक इरादा करते हैं, चलो खुद से वादा करते हैं, मास्क नहीं तो टोकेंगे, कोरोना को रोकेंगे. Welcome back. India has achieved another significant milestone in its fight against COVID as more than 76 lakh people have recovered from the infection so far. The national recovery rate has reached 92.09%. With overall recovery of nearly 76 lakh 56,000 patients, the recovered cases in the country stand at over 14 times the number of active cases. Over 53,000 patients recovered and were discharged in the last 24 hours. The new confirmed cases reported in the same time span stood at nearly 46,000. The active caseload of the country has also fallen below 6.5%. The total positive cases in the country today stands at 5,33,787, which comprises merely 6.42% of the total reported cases. With a high number of COVID patients recovering every day, along with a steadily falling and sustained low mortality rate, India's trend of registering decreasing active cases continues.
Health Ministry said that enhanced countrywide medical infrastructure, implementation of the centre's standard treatment protocol by the states and union territories, and total dedication and commitment of doctors, paramedics and frontline workers have led to a persistent increase in the number of total recoveries in the country. It said this has also led to a commensurate dip in the fatality rate, which stands at 1.49%. The Health Ministry informed that 514 case fatalities were reported in the past 24 hours, of which nearly 75% are concentrated in 10 states and union territories. The country has crossed another milestone in terms of COVID testing. With nearly 12,10,000 COVID samples being tested in the last 24 hours, the cumulative testing figure has reached 11 crore 30 lakh mark. The Union Government and the Indian Council of Medical Research have scaled up the testing infrastructure in a calibrated manner. India's testing capacity has touched 15 lakh per day, ensuring easily accessible COVID-19 tests for all.
The Sero survey conducted by the Health Department in Karnataka has captured the total prevalence of COVID pandemic across 30 districts. The survey was done between 3rd and 16th of September, involving 16,585 samples, showing the COVID prevalence of 27.3% and infection fatality rate due to COVID-19 at 0.05%. Out of the total sample size, results of 15,624 persons were submitted to arrive at the conclusion. Our correspondent tells us more.
The survey covered low-risk groups like pregnant women and outpatients, moderate-risk group like bus conductors, vegetable vendors and individuals in containment zones, and the third category were high-risk groups like aged persons with comorbidity. Analysis of a rapid antigen test, RT-PCR test and ELISA antibody tests were conducted on these groups. The survey has helped find out the surge in COVID cases is yet to occur in the districts with lowest estimated prevalence. The study has recommended establishing the district-level facility-based sentinel sero surveillance to monitor the trend of infection in the long term. 2 more sero surveys will be conducted in December and March. Sudhindra, AIR News, Bengaluru.
In Odisha, COVID-19 active cases have further come down to 13,919. A total of 1,462 patients recovered today against 1,474 fresh infection cases. With this, while the cumulative recovery in the state has reached 2,80,553, the total caseload has gone up to 2,95,889.
COVID-appropriate behavior being observed by the people in general, coupled with the crowd prevention measures of the government in particular, has significantly dented the viral transmission in the state. Despite these, while the government is yet to take a call on the reopening of the religious places for the devotees, it is seriously mulling over the reopening of the schools shut down since the early days of the lockdown. Consultations with the stakeholders and preparation of the standard operating procedures are already put towards this end. Meanwhile, with a view to preventing the virus from slipping out of control, particularly during the wintry days ahead, the government has slapped a ban on the sale and use of firecrackers in the state in view of the upcoming Diwali from the 10th to the end of this month. Here is Chandra Das, Bhubaneswar.
The YCM hospital in Pimpri Chinchwad, which was reserved for the treatment of COVID-19 patients, is now open to non-COVID patients as well. Municipal Commissioner Shravan Hardikar informed that 50% of the hospital beds have been reserved for COVID patients. The hospital has said that care will be taken to ensure that these patients do not come in contact with corona-infected patients. On the other hand, with the number of coronavirus cases coming down, Solapur District Administration has decided to shut down 3 COVID-dedicated facilities set up across the district. Accordingly, the COVID care centers set up at ESIC Government Polytechnic and Vadia Hospital will be closed. In the last 5 months, 374 patients received treatment at these facilities. In Dehradun, the Municipal Corporation has launched an initiative named Plastic Lao Mask Le Jao to fight against the menace of plastic waste and contain the spread of COVID-19. It has distributed 5,000 face masks in exchange for plastic waste. Municipal Commissioner Vinay Shankar Pandey, who was the first to bring plastic waste from his house and get a face mask, said that it will create awareness in the public against plastic waste and also the importance of masks.
In Tripura, 137 cases of COVID-19 were detected in the last 24 hours. while 112 patients were discharged post-recovery in the same period. Also, 3 COVID patients died yesterday, taking the death toll in the state to 350. Alongside, the recovery rate of COVID-19 patients now stands at 94.97%. With this, the total number of infected people rose to 30,989, out of which 29,407 patients recovered from the infection. As of today, 1,206 patients are undergoing treatment. The State Health Bulletin stated that so far 4,64,006 samples have been tested, and out of the total samples tested, 4,33,017 people have been found negative. Professor of Cardiology at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi, Dr. Sandeep Mishra says, we must avoid going to crowded places in order to save ourselves from coronavirus. Talking to AIR News, Dr. Mishra said, all of us must strictly follow COVID-appropriate behavior.
COVID is a viral infection for which there is no good cure, but prevention is the best strategy. Since the infection spreads through air, face masks can prevent the spread of disease. Maintaining hand hygiene is another effective step. Hands should be washed with soap and water for at least 40 to 60 seconds. You can also use a sanitizer. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, mouth with unwashed hands. Social distancing is the most effective way for preventing infection. You should stay at home as much as possible. Practice physical distancing of 2 meters or 6 feet at public places.
In Maharashtra, the police has arrested Republic TV editor-in-chief Arnab Goswami for allegedly abetting suicide of a 53-year-old interior designer. A police official said a team of Alibag police picked up Goswami from his residence. In 2018, an architect and his mother committed suicide over alleged non-payment of dues by Goswami's Republic TV, the official said. In May this year, State Home Minister Anil Deshmukh had announced that a re-investigation has been ordered on a fresh complaint by Adanya Nayak, daughter of the architect Anvay Nayak. Mr. Deshmukh said Adanya alleged that the Alibag police had not investigated the case which she claimed drove her father and grandmother to suicide in May 2018. BJP has questioned the arrest of editor-in-chief of Republic TV, Arnab Goswami. The party said his arrest is the black day of Indian journalism. Briefing reporters in New Delhi today, BJP spokesman Sambit Patra condemned the arrest, saying it is an attempt to curtail the voice of free press.
Such dastardly action against the press, against the people who dissent, is an attack on the fundamental right of not only the press, the reporters, the editors, but also is an attack on the fundamental right of the core of this democracy called India.
Home Minister Amit Shah today slammed Congress over the arrest of journalist Arnab Goswami. In a tweet today, Mr. Shah said, Congress and its allies have shamed democracy once again. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar has termed the arrest of television journalist Arnab Goswami as an attack on the freedom of press. In a tweet, the minister said, those who really believe in freedom of press must speak up. Union Information and Broadcasting Minister Prakash Javadekar has condemned the attack on press freedom in Maharashtra. Referring to the arrest of Arnab Goswami in Mumbai earlier this morning, Mr. Javadekar expressed displeasure over the way press is being treated in the state. He said the incident reminds of the emergency days when the press was treated in a similar manner. Maharashtra Home Minister Anil Deshmukh today said that the action against Arnab Goswami has been taken as per the court order. He also said that no person is above the law in the state. Mr. Deshmukh told reporters that the wife of the interior designer, Anvay Nayak, had pleaded in the court. The court had allowed to re-investigate the case. After this, the police started investigating this case, and as a reason, Goswami has been arrested.
In Jammu and Kashmir, State Election Commissioner K.K. Sharma yesterday held a detailed review with the District Panchayat election officers of the Union Territory. The meeting, held via video conferencing, was attended by the Chief Electoral Officer, Ridesh Kumar, Divisional Commissioners Pandurang Pol, Sanjeev Verma, and Secretary Rural Development and Panchayati Raj, Sheetal Nanda. District Panchayat election officers of all the districts, besides senior officers of the election department, attended the review meeting. Separately, State Election Commissioner also issued final reservation notification for the District Development Council constituencies in the UT of Jammu and Kashmir. seats have been reserved for SCs and STs, proportionate to their respective population. Further, 33% seats in each District Development Council have been reserved for women. Jammu Divisional Commissioner Sanjeev Verma held a video conference meeting yesterday with Deputy Commissioners of border districts to review progress on construction of individual and community bunkers along the border in Jammu Division. Our correspondent reports that the meeting was attended by DCs of Kathua, Samba, Rajouri and Poonch districts and apprised the Divisional Commissioner about progress of work under construction in their respective districts. It was informed that 7,777 bunkers have been completed so far in the division. Still with Jammu and Kashmir, Mahila Shakti Kendra MSK Rajouri yesterday launched Selfie with Daughter campaign in the district to celebrate the pride of having daughters. Our correspondent reports that the aim of the campaign is to motivate society to take pride in being parents of a girl child. It will in turn help in improving the child-sex ratio. Women Welfare Officer MSK Rajouri, Dr. Anu Mirza, said that Selfie with Daughter campaign has become a worldwide movement against female feticide and sex selection. Pertinently, during the last few days, MSK Rajouri received a number of selfies supporting the campaign of Selfie with Daughter, after which the best selfies were given prizes.
The Union Ministry of Water Resources has declared an award for a villager of Sangli, Sampath Rao Pawar, for his contribution to the revitalization of the Agrani River. Our Sangli correspondent reports that Mr. Pawar was the first person to come up with the idea of recirculating the river, which had disappeared due to mud, soil and bushes. Now let us take a look at the weather update for the day. The national capital will see mist. The temperature will hover between 11 and 29 degrees Celsius. In Mumbai, sky will be mainly clear. The lower level of temperature in the metropolis was 23 and the upper level will be around 33. Chennai is to see a generally cloudy sky. Kolkata is expected to have a partly cloudy sky with temperature varying between 24 and 33 degrees Celsius. In Jammu and Kashmir, Jammu and Srinagar cities will have a mainly clear sky, but there will be a much variance in temperature in Srinagar as the minimum temperature was just 1 degree Celsius, while maximum will be around 20 degrees. In Jammu, lower level of temperature was 13, while upper level will be around 30. In Leh, sky will be mainly clear in the morning and it will become partly cloudy in the afternoon and evening. Gilgit will also see a clear sky, but later it will become partly cloudy with temperature hovering between 1 and 24 degrees Celsius. In Muzaffarabad, sky will be mainly clear and the temperature will move from 8 to 29 degrees Celsius.
On to sports. The third season of the Women's T20 Challenge is set to begin this evening with defending champion Supernovas taking on the Velocity in Sharjah. India T20 international captain Harmanpreet Kaur will be leading defending champion Supernovas and take on Mithali Raj-led Velocity. This tournament, like previous editions, will take place during the IPL playoffs. The three teams, Supernovas, Velocity and Trailblazers, are set to play 3 matches in Sharjah, with the final scheduled on 9th of November at the same venue. 3 matches start at 7:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time. The only day game will be the second one, which will begin at 3:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time tomorrow. Though short, this tournament is significant for women's cricket. The T20 World Cup earlier this year was a huge success and was expected to have a knock-on effect for the women's game around the globe. In IPL cricket, for men, Mumbai Indians will clash with Delhi Capitals at Dubai in the first playoff match tomorrow. Sunrisers Hyderabad thrashed Mumbai Indians by 10 wickets to seal playoff berth at Sharjah last night. Put into bat first, Mumbai scored 149 for 8 in the allotted 20 overs. In reply, Sunrisers overhauled the target in 17.1 overs, riding on the unbeaten opening partnership of David Warner and Riddhiman Saha.
And now, before we end the bulletin, the headlines once again. Campaigning is in full swing for third and final phase of assembly elections in Bihar. Counting of votes underway for keenly contested U.S. presidential elections. COVID-19 recovery rate improves to 92.09%. Record 11 crore 30 lakh tests conducted in the country so far. UN General Assembly adopts 2 Indian-sponsored resolutions on nuclear disarmament. And in cricket, Women's T20 Challenger gets underway in Sharjah this evening. For details of these stories and more, log on to our website www.newsonair.com and News on AIR app. And with that, we end the midday news.